The most innovative companies are going further with T-Mobile for Business, like Delta Airlines. Together with T-Mobile for Business, Delta Airlines is putting 5G into the hands of ground staff so they can better assist on-the-go travelers with real-time information, from the Delta Sky Club to the Jet Bridge. This is elevating customer experience. And Tractor Supply trusts 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to connect over 2,200 stores around the country with 5G business internet. Plus, T-Mobile is powering AI solutions so Tractor Supply team members can match shoppers with the products they need faster. This is enriching customer experience. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome in to another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I'm Bennett Conlon, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. Jack, the Dukes are undefeated. They beat UNC. All of our doubts are gone. This team's going to go to the college football playoff.
What a game. 70-50. Who would have thought that UNC could score 50 points and JMU would still win by 20, and the game was never really in doubt in the second half? Well, you kind of were you were a little pessimistic there, a little scared, a little flashbacks to I think the Utah State game a year ago. But what a game it was.
What a game. I think what did I say? They were going to win like 28-24, and that was the score after like a quarter. I mean, just
maybe 5 minutes in, honestly.
It was complete chaos. But hey, good on JMU dropping 70 on North Carolina. It's the only the only Power 4 team I think this year to allow 70. There's only like a handful of FBS teams that have allowed 70. So for JMU to score 70 on North Carolina, which had not given up more than 20 in a game prior this year, super impressive. All three faces were clicking. I mean, what a crazy game, and it seems like probably by far JMU's hardest of the year.
Without a doubt. And it was funny because coming into it, I was saying on ESPN Richmond, JMU wouldn't be able to compete in like a track meet type of game where if you let Omarion Hampton, run for 150 yards, let him find the touchdown a few times, there's no way on God's green earth that they would be able to compete in a game like that. Well, not only did Omarion Hampton rush for like 146, a couple of touchdowns in there, he was doing a bunch of damage with yards after contact, his kind of calling card. It didn't matter because a lot of his yards were garbage time yards. Yeah. A lot of his best runs came when the game was already out of hand, like his 50-yard run late in the fourth quarter. JMU did what they needed to do. They won in a track meet. They had a special teams touchdown. They had a defensive touchdown, and they had Alonzo Barnett set a school record for 7 total touchdowns with 5 passing, 2 rushing.
That feels like a huge storyline because there were calls for Alonzo Barnett's benching. Not by me. I was an Alonzo Barnett supporter. I was on the bandwagon. Bob Chesney's allowing me to stay on this bandwagon. We'll talk about that later. But man, what a performance. He was viewed like as a Heisman Player of the Week by outlets. I think ESPN named him Heisman Player of the Week. He was the AP National Player of the Week. Pretty good.
I tweeted this out, if Alonzo Barnett continues with this same type of production, where it's maybe not even same type of production, because that would be utterly insane, but 300 yards per game, 3 touchdowns per game, and leads JMU to maybe an unblemished, maybe a 1-loss record. Is he invited to the Heisman ceremony? Is he in the conversation for the Heisman?
He's got to go crazy, and I think they have to go undefeated.
Okay. But it's just insane that like we're now having this conversation here in week 4 of the college football season, 3rd game down, after what we saw out of Alonzo Barnett and this offense through the first 2 games, more so out of the offense because Alonzo Barnett really truly was never the issue based on a lot of advanced metrics, a lot of PFF grades. Alonzo Barnett has been playing at a pretty high level for the majority of this season, and it finally came all together. And what a performance by Alonzo Barnett, and what a performance by BetOnline. It's the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share at that $200K. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack, poker, or unwind with one of BetOnline's over 150 slots games. Head to BetOnline today, to get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. But just insane. I mean, Alonzo Barnett, have yourself a game. I do have to take my hat off to you. I'd take my hat off if I didn't have the headphones on. It'd be a little too much to take the hat off. But hats off to you. 2 weeks in a row, you're writing columns on JMUSportsNews.com. You're talking about it right here on the JMU Sports News Podcast. Not to overreact to Alonzo Barnett. You got to keep with him. You got to hold true to him. And you must have been having yourself a lot of victory laps on Saturday.
I was, especially because he started 1 of 6, and there was some chatter, right? There was some chatter of like, oh, wow, how stupid could you be to think Alonzo Barnett would be the guy? And then it was like, oh, really? I mean, he played out of his mind. But there's stuff that he did in the Charlotte game. There's throws that he made in the Gardner-Webb game that I don't think Dylan Morris can make. And I think Dylan Morris is like a solid quarterback, did some nice things at Washington. But like Barnett has arm strength and speed. I know for a fact, like what he does running, Morris cannot do, just from all the film we've seen. And then I think passing, he can make more throws than like a lot of college quarterbacks. I think he can make more throws than Jordan McLeod. Like he's really talented, and he just is getting reps. And once he gets reps, I feel like he's going to get better and better and better.
And that deep ball, man, I will go out on a limb and say I don't think Dylan Morris can make those throws, because I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback outside of Russell Wilson have that type of touch on deep throws.
He gives me some Russell Wilson vibes in terms of his play, especially the way he runs gives me a little bit of like Russell Wilson flashbacks, but he's got an incredible arm, not the tallest guy, but he's got an incredible arm, runs around really well. Great runner. I mean, he had 99 rushing yards. He had 388 passing yards. He didn't turn the ball over. Hasn't turned the ball over in a couple of weeks now. His turnovers this year came against Charlotte. One is where the left tackle was immediately beaten on a strip sack. Chesney says he was about to throw a touchdown. The other one was the interception where he thought Charlotte was offsides because they were, and it wasn't called. So he threw up like a 50-50 jump ball. So he's taking care of the ball at a crazy good rate. He's making explosive plays. And I know fans still want to see him hit more like those intermediate passes. Some of that is him and his accuracy. Some of that is like if the ball is slightly outside your frame, some of these guys got to catch it. Because there are a few that are like hitting hands, but they're outside the chest, and guys are dropping them. Where like he's putting up crazy numbers if the drops go down.
Yeah, that first drive where he goes for like a 39-yard run on the read option. And I guess we'll transition now to the offensive just amazingness against UNC, but he has that amazing first run of the game. They have Tyler Purdy and George Pettaway out there on the field. They do the read option. Everyone's expecting, including that poor edge defender for UNC who crashes so hard in, for that run to be right up the middle for Pettaway to get that game going. Barnett pulls it, runs for 39, and then the ensuing next 2-3 plays, it's a Ymir Knight catch, which was a little low, but he catches it, goes down the ground. Then it's a Taylor Thompson drop, a Cam Ross drop, I believe. And then to me, I started having PTSD again as I'm watching it at the battleground on the campus of University of Mary Washington. And my coworkers are sitting next to me like, why are you okay? And I'm like, this is an opportunity for us to go in and beat an ACC team. And our receivers just aren't making the catches. And then they shut me up, and they had everything. Noah Ruelas, shout out to him. First 50-yard field goal. I think Katie Harper tweeted since 2008 for JMU.
It's insane.
I got to fact check that. I'm going to fact check that now. But like, what a game for that team as a whole. We'll just spend probably the first 25 minutes of this podcast talking about this UNC game offensively for JMU.
I don't think I've ever seen a coaching staff and a team answer so many questions from week to week. Obviously, they had a bye week in between, which I think was helpful. But the Gardner-Webb game, we're all sitting there like, wow, the play calling wasn't creative. The execution wasn't good. They didn't seem aggressive enough. And Chesney's like, cool. Like, I hear you. And then he came out with an incredibly aggressive game plan. I mean, they're driving down the field with that great read option you said on the first play that they designed because they thought UNC would crash, scripted perfectly. If they did get off schedule in this game, it wasn't often, but they were doing so many creative things offensively. Special teams, they go onside kick, block a punt for a touchdown. They fake an extra point truly for no reason. Like other than just like, we're going to do this because we think it's fun. And like I think the play was designed to go to Taylor Thompson. and they went to Mowry, the long snapper, which apparently in practice he didn't get one all week, which was how I interpreted that quote from Drew Kanan. He had a quote that was like, Mowry, Jack didn't catch any during practice, which I think was because the play wasn't to him, not that he has like horrible hands. I saw some people.
See, that was, I thought for sure Mowry just had dropped it every time they passed it to him.
I think it wasn't for him because they were praising Noe so much for like going to a second read. Like we're talking about quarterback progressions and like the kickers going through his progressions. So I think that's how it was. I interpreted it. Maybe he dropped some too, but that play was like kind of unnecessary, but then also seemed to put, you talked about this on To the House with Delvin, maybe like put Mac Brown's brain in a pretzel because that man was going for 2 for no reason, like really stupid decisions late in the game. Maybe he saw them and was just like, I got to go for 2 now. I mean, it didn't make sense what UNC was doing, but Chesney outcoached him.
Confirmed that kick from Noe Ruelas was the 6th longest kick. This is from Katie Harper. 6th longest kick in JMU history, the longest since October of 2008.
You saw that in the rewatch?
A kick?
Yeah.
Yeah, it had room to spare.
That thing went in at like the top of the uprights. That was good from like 60. That man has a leg.
It's funny because then there was later on in the game, or like the next drive, or maybe 2 drives later, where they ended up punting it, which I think was the right decision because Ryan Hansen is like a very good punter. But like Noe was on the sidelines, like with his helmet ready to go. Like, and I think it was from like 60.
Yeah, 58. They almost kicked a 58-yarder.
And he's just like, I'm ready. And then I think it's the right move in that moment to go to your punter when you have an All-American punter. But like, you'll love to see that. He's like, I could kick it. I mean, why not? And Chesney genuinely thought about it. We've been blessed as JMU fans, right, to have these ultra automatic, accurate kickers from inside 40. It's really fun to have a kicker who can kick from 60.
It is fun to have an NFL guy. Like, just like that's an NFL leg. I don't know if he's making an NFL roster in the future, but like if you're hitting from 60 plus, you will get considered.
Yes.
And he's accurate too. He's been very accurate in his career. He's like 20 of 26, which is right around like 80%. I think 79 point something for his career. That's pretty good.
More accurate than Justin Tucker over the last 2 seasons.
Tucker's been struggling from deep. Yeah. So it's interesting. And Tucker, I think, has like the best kicking percentage in NFL history. And he's at like 89 something. So if you're at 79, that's not too shabby, especially in college.
But overall, the offense was amazing. I want to get your take on bringing Dean Kennedy down from the booth, because this game was the first game Dean Kennedy, as a JMU offensive coordinator, was on the sideline. And I think it made a huge impact in the game, more so for the fact that the offensive coordinator now can talk face-to-face with his young quarterback who, in the Gardner-Webb game, in the Charlotte game, had moments where it seemed like he may get rattled a little bit. And having the offensive coordinator right there to kind of talk you down and talk face-to-face with you, I think that mattered more than being able to have a bird's eye view of how the offense was, how it was all unfolding up there. What was your opinion on Dean Kennedy being on the sideline? Do you think we're making too much out of it?
It seemed to be helpful. I don't know how much of it was that or how much of it was just like they executed better, but I agree with the conversations with Alonzo. I think having those not over like a headset on the phone essentially is more valuable. Like when you're able to have those conversations in person and talk about things right next to him on the tablet rather than through the headset is valuable. And you can talk to everyone on the offense. You can talk to your running backs. You can talk to the receivers, linemen if you need to. I think it just brings a different energy to it. So, I mean, yeah, I assume they'll keep trying that given how successful it was. Kennedy was saying it's the first time he's done it as an offensive coordinator. He'd been in the booth every other time. And they've scored a bunch of points with him in the booth at Holy Cross and all these other things. So we'll see if it becomes a long-term thing, but it seemed to be helpful, at least for Alonzo, who did settle in very well after kind of that slower start again.
I'll say a hot take here, though. I prefer my offensive coordinator to be on the sideline. Defensive coordinator, he can be up in the booth. I like my offensive coordinator on the sideline.
And there's still coaches right in the booth that are seeing and can give Kennedy sort of that bird's eye view of stuff if he needs it. I will say the view from like a press box where you can see the field is very interesting from a schematic standpoint, but there's a lot of play callers, NFL and college, some of the best play callers like in the country are often on the sideline, right? Lane Kiffin calls a bunch of plays and has run incredible offenses on the sideline because he's always throwing his clipboard up in the air when there's like an obvious touchdown that his team's about to score. So yeah, I think there is some value to being there, having those conversations, and just being able to communicate maybe a little bit better, which Chesney's preached all offseason and all seasons. Communication is key.
Man, what a game. Let's move to the wide receivers. Let's go outside before we go back. Outside, Cam Ross, 7 catches over 100 yards and a touchdown. Omarion Dollison goes 3 catches for 125 and a touchdown. Shout out my
That's
boy
your victory
OD.
lap. Yeah.
That is my victory lap. That was a throwaway line onto the house. We talked about it on Monday's episode because last Monday I said, this is the game that lines up perfectly for Omarion Dollison to, have 3 catches. I said 3 catches, 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. He went 3 for 125 and a tutty. So nice little stat line for Dollison, but it was really good to see Cam Ross start to get used in that short to intermediate over the middle type of spots. And all of that is to say this was done without Tajee Hudson really being a factor in the passing game. He did play out there, but no catches. I don't know.
I think he drop like 1 target and it was dropped, but it was high, but he like hit him in the hand. So I think it kind of dropped. No, I'm just saying, like, if you look at Barnett's stats, like Cam Ross had 11 targets, 7 catches, and PFF said he had 3 drops. Like every time, the man's always open. Like everybody was open on the entire team. And like if a pass play didn't work, it was because they dropped it, not because an ACC defense could stop them. I was stunned by how good the receiving depth looked in this game, because we've been talking a lot about like the depth, and we're like, it's great, but maybe just play the good players. What if they're all good players? And Chesney was right, and we were overreacting to the Gardner-Webb game because Ross was great, Dollison was great, Logan Kyle had a red zone touchdown, Taylor Thompson had a red zone touchdown, Dylan Williams had a red zone touchdown.
Taylor Thompson, a.k.a. Taylor Seam God Thompson.
He's really good in the seams. Nice to see Logan Kyle get a touchdown late. Not everyone saw it. I saw it after the fact. Shout out to ACC Network. But like Dylan Williams is a stud. Like his touchdown catch was behind him, and he like lays out and snags that thing. They got some red zone packages. They got some other packages. It feels like they have guys who can do a little bit of everything. I didn't even mention him here tonight. 5 catches for like 81 yards. He was phenomenal.
With like a 48-yard catch on 3rd and 8 in the third quarter that helped like not ice the game, because I think they were up 3 scores by that point, but like really helped just push the knife a little deeper into the Tar Heels. But talking about red zone packages and the red zone plays they have, that Logan Kyle touchdown that we all missed because ACC Network cut away from the game right before the play started was a beautifully designed play, because you had Petaway come out of the backfield. He was running kind of an inside right in front of Logan Kyle, bringing it back into the middle, and it pulled the safety, or I guess it was the deep corner that was supposed to cover Logan Kyle up, because Barnett's looking over there, and you've all of a sudden flooded the zones on the left side of the field, and it was just a miscommunication, and boom, bam, thank you, ma'am. Logan Kyle wide open in the corner. Just a beautifully designed play from Dean Kennedy. I think I saw Sully said this, our on-campus contributor, in the instant reactions. Delvin said this onto the house on Monday. It feels like they were protecting some of their playbook. My pushback on that is, I don't know how much of it was them like deciding not to use that part of the playbook, and how much of it was, we have an early bye week. Let's install some of our more complex concepts during the bye week. Let's do a little bit more install around then, so that those plays weren't even available to them against Gardner-Webb and Charlotte, rather than them just not doing the plays. But I mean, I guess it's all kind of the same. You actively chose not to do those plays in the preseason. So I guess at the end of the day, it's all kind of the same. But yeah, Sully said it best. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, is what he said, but it really felt like they were protecting part of their playbook at that point through the first 2 weeks.
I think they were, and they still had plays that were set up well against Gardner-Webb that, like, if they executed, they probably win like 31-6 instead of 13-6. So they were probably disappointed with that, but they were pulling out all the stops. This was incredible stuff offensively. Is this like a more talented offense than last year's?
I don't know if it's more talented, because, Elijah Surratt is a Big Ten receiver. Reggie Brown was an elite level deep threat. Phoenix Sproles is very good at football. I know. However, listen to me, Bennett, listen to me. I think it is a better play called offense. I think it is a better designed offense. And I think they all have the potential to be better. I think I think they're all being played in their roles. Dollison is an elite speedster. Why would we waste his speed running 4-yard slants where he's going to get popped over the middle? No, just run. You run 22 miles an hour with pads on. Go. Have fun. We'll try to get it to you. I think they got him in the right role. Cam Ross is starting to develop into his right role, and there's potential that Cam Ross becomes very good. I think this is just a much better designed offense than last year.
I would agree with that. I think they might be more talented. I think Alonzo's more talented than Jordan McLeod. And I think Jordan McLeod's very good, and he did some incredible things last year. I don't think Jordan McLeod can run the ball the way that Barnett can. Like Barnett, they ran a quarterback power for a touchdown. That's not McLeod's game.
Yeah. I guess I'm so not wanting to be prisoner of the moment that I'm refusing to acknowledge this, but you might be on the right side of history with this one, where in like 3 weeks, I'm looking back and I'm like, wow, was I an idiot? But I refuse to be too much of a prisoner of the moment.
We need to see it more. We need to see it more.
Like, yes, they have the potential to be all of that. Barnett, I think, has more talent than McLeod, but McLeod has more proven success than Barnett up to this point. Because
that's fair.
Not to be an overly pessimistic person, and I'm not. I genuinely believe this team is very good. The backfield is much better. George Pettaway is shocking me with how good he is, not just on the outside, but the dude can run between the guards, not even between the tackles. He's a
power conference player. like I don't know how North Carolina let him get away.
He's insanely good, but Barnett has had 3.5 good quarters, and he's had 8.5 bad quarters, or below average to average quarterbacking play.
I want to see more for sure. I just if you go for 7 touchdowns and almost 500 yards with no turnovers against North Carolina, and your next games are Ball State, ULM, and Coastal, that gets me excited. Coastal gave up almost 400 rushing yards to UVA.
Does it worry you to quickly change gears over to the 2 deep that was just released for Ball State game? And we'll talk about this in just a little bit, but Ball State, Tyshawn Wyatt, not on the 2 deep as expected, because we're honestly not even sure if he's been cleared for football activities yet, based off of what Chesney said 2 weeks ago. And there's been no follow-up on that, but Iowa Dei not even listed on the 2 deep, which is interesting because Bob Chesney loves listing people on the 2 deep who are not available.
He does. I think he dressed for the UNC game. My guess is they're just going to ease him back because Pettaway and Purdy are playing so well. So I'm not too worried about that. Wyatt, do you think Wyatt's going to play this year at all?
No.
I don't really think so either. If he's maybe doesn't have medical clearance and they're playing so well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that the line is one. This is a good segue back into the offense at the UNC game, because the offensive line played exceptionally well. Barnett was literally standing flat-footed at times because there was no one near him, where he's like, okay, I can just stand and look. All right, he's covered. Oh, he's wide open. All right, I'm going to hit him. And then there was no one even coming near him. With Tyshawn Wyatt, I feel like if you get to conference play and he's not healthy, so you've gone through the first 4 games of your season and he's not in game shape, I think you have a real conversation with him. Do you want a red shirt? We'd love to have you back next year. Do you want to apply for a medical hardship? And then you have him for next season. If he says he doesn't want to do that and he wants to get on with his life, then I think you then try to get him back in play. But I think there's going to be a conversation had where it's look, but the way it's all shaken out, you may only play 4 games this season. Do you want to just save this year and come back next year? Or do you want to play those last 4 years, use your last year of eligibility and move on? But as it stands right now, Jesse Ramil had a shaky 1 play against Charlotte that all of us fans remember for good reason, because it led to a horrible strip sack. Since then, he's been elite. This whole offensive line has been elite at pass blocking, and they're getting better each week in run blocking.
That I was impressed with how they hung in there against North Carolina. Bob Chesney had a quote after too, where he was like, early on, like we weren't sure exactly how the offensive line would hold up, and then like once it became clear that they would, it was like, oh my god, this is gonna be sweet, because they were just calling like deep shots, and Barnett was comfortable in the pocket because they knew it wasn't gonna break down much. They were phenomenal. I thought the run blocking was really good. Like shout out to them, because against Charlotte and Gardner Webb, I was like, I'm not totally sure, although their pass blocking grades were really really good. So there was clearly some potential there, but I assumed the step up in competition would maybe have them take a step down, and it really didn't. Like I thought they were kind of manhandling North Carolina's front, and the ability to rotate with having the guys who are rotating in playing at a very similar level is stunning. And I was I just was skeptical that that could be possible after the first couple of weeks. I was like, I don't like this rotating thing. They're rotating guys in who are playing like as well as the starters,
if not better. Joseph Simmons and Robel,
Yeah.
apologies on not knowing the name. I got to look at the pronunciation guide. Dogs. They're the top two rated offensive linemen in pass blocking with less snaps, but they haven't allowed, I think, a pressure. They are just dominating.
They've been incredible. Like, and I don't know, some of these younger guys that are going to, like, in theory be around next year, a ton of talent on this roster. It's a little bit silly at times.
The fact that they have George Pettaway there is insane. He's so good, man.
He's been really, really steady. I mean, Io hasn't done. He has what, like 50 rushing yards through 3 games, and he missed the UNC game, and they.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
Sorry, you froze there for a second. But yeah, Robel's Robel's not listed in the pronunciation guide, so I'm going to assume it's Robel.
Yeah, that's. He's a dog, though. Redshirt freshman.
It's interesting that they're doing it more often on the right side of the line, though, rather than the left side. I feel like we don't see a ton of Luke Potma coming in for Jesse Ramil. We don't see a ton of Josh Toner coming in for Carter Sweezy, but we're seeing a healthy rotation with Riley Robel and Joseph Simmons on the right side of the line. Am I wrong in that?
Does Simmons get in at left too? I've seen him at left too. I don't know how much he did at North Carolina. They've used him at both tackle spots though throughout the year. Which, like, kind of crazy that they just have this redshirt sophomore that didn't get a lot of hype, who's like 6'6", 310, and they're like, yeah, you can play like both tackles for us. Like, what? That's like, we didn't hear like anything about him in the preseason, and this dude is just an absolute stud who's like making up for a lot. Like if Wyatt does come back, I don't know, like maybe you rotate him at left guard or something. Like it's fascinating stuff.
I'm genuinely confused by, like, this goes against all of my preconceived notions of offensive line play, where like that's the only position group you don't want rotations at. You want the continuity. You want the guys to be there for as many snaps as possible. And now JMU is just like, oh, no, actually, we're going to rotate 2 to 3 guys coming in. They're going to, have about a third of the snaps. And then the rest of the starters will have about 2/3 of the snaps. And it's going to work. And it's going to actually help our team in huge ways. I've never seen that. It's defense. It makes sense. Offense, it goes against everything I know.
It's very confusing, but it's working. Like they're rotating receivers, they're rotating running backs, they're rotating pretty much every position except quarterback. And it seems like, at least based on the UNC sample size, it worked very, very well. I want to see it again against Ball State. And then defensively, I thought there were some good things in this game. It wasn't perfect, but they created 5 turnovers, very good. Giving up 600 yards, less good. But like a pick 6, 5 turnovers, they have like 3 sacks or something. There's a lot to build on there. And I think we're starting to see some of those younger, like interior defensive linemen and some of these other young guys really step up and make plays, like Michael McMullen getting some good snap counts. Who else do they keep giving? Deneau more snaps at defensive line. He seems like he's working in there at defensive tackle. I don't know. It seems to mostly be working, although obviously you want to give up fewer yards because it is hard to replicate 5 turnover performances. And then also of note, they've kind of gone away from Torres Jones. I think he had 5 snaps in this game, so he's maybe odd man out at linebacker right now.
Yeah, a little disappointing. Before we get into defense, we're going to step aside for a quick ad break. We're going to be back with AB3 apologies, and then we'll dive into breaking down the JMU defense, getting the job.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. See ebaymotors.com.
Done. All right, welcome back in. Before we talk defense, we got to talk Alonzo Barnett III, apologies. You had this great idea to put a Google form out there on our Twitter. You can find our Twitter at JMU Sports News. You can find the full list of apologies at jmusportsnews.com. It's under the football tab, and currently it's featured at the top of the website. These AB3 apologies were absolutely hilarious.
They were good.
Let's both read two of our favorites.
Okay.
So you can read the full list of them over on jmusportsnews.com. We'll give you a little taste of it now. Bennett, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go with one of the shorter ones here, and then I'll do a snippet of another. Some of these they got some length to them. But this one from Connor I thought was particularly funny. I'm sorry for doubting you and telling my friends and family you suck. I also want to apologize to my girlfriend for listening to me complain about him for 3 weeks.
That's a good one. This is from Connor Dulvitz. Alonza, I am sorry. I will admit I had doubts. I didn't know your game. Now that I've seen the light, I'm all in. You definitely put in work over the offseason, and now that JMU Nation knows what you can do, you can be unstoppable. Here's to a fantastic rest of the season, and go Dukes. This
is a one that I loved from. We had two Kevin submit things. So I labeled this person as another Kevin. This was our second Kevin. This is just a snippet here. I'm sorry for publicly declaring in all caps that you stink. I was wrong. I was wrong. I'm deeply ashamed of my conduct. I'm slightly befuddled as to why you need to complete at least 2 40-plus air yard passes before you get into a groove. I'm still confused as to how you can lay an egg against Gardner-Webb and then score 7 total touchdowns against UNC. Maybe you're just a gamer. You need an opponent worthy of your skill set to muster all of your talents. Whatever it is, I sincerely regret my hostility and animosity towards you.
That's a good one. I'm going to read the full one from Ryan Rutherford because he had his Twitter name as Dylan Morris Truther. I think it was.
What is it now? It's like Alonzo Barnett for Heisman or something?
Yeah, it's now Alonzo Barnett for Heisman. And so his full apology needs to be read because I think he was on the forefront of being a Dylan Morris truther. Ryan Rutherford said, I sincerely and wholeheartedly apologize to Mr. Alonzo Barnett III. I was blinded by the hype of former All Pac-12, RIP Pac-12, Dylan Morris. I also won a national championship with JMU and NCAA 25 with Dylan at QB, so I have already visualized it so much. For real, I do feel bad. Dylan moved across the country for his last year of college to sit on the bench. I was also experiencing extreme levels of deja vu from Mr. Barnett III's first start last year. I hereby pledge House Ruthershevy to House Barnett III. Long live QB AB3. Future Heisman winner and national champion. I will defend your honor in every way I can on Twitter and Bridgeforth on Saturdays.
Love that one.
Oh, fantastic. All right.
That's the good stuff.
Some great Alonzo Barnett III apologies.
It was crazy, though, to go from like a decent amount of people wanting him benched to him winning AP National Player of the Week in the same game. Like, people in the game when he won AP National Player of the Week wanted him benched. Whoa.
Bennett, you must have logged 10, 15,000 steps just doing your victory laps on Saturday afternoon.
Once he hit the deep ball to Dawson, it was like, oh man, this might be something.
Also, shout out. We'll get to defense here in 15 seconds. Dollison had that first route that it looked like he ran wrong, where he was also wide open and he catches.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh, what a game. All right.
I thoroughly enjoyed the fact that Barnett, when he sees an offsides flag, maybe more than any other college QB I've ever seen, is like, I'm throwing this ball as far as I can. Like, he's clearly been coached very much like free play, and he's like, yes, free play. I'm scoring a touchdown on this play, which I love for him. And I was impressed how they rallied, because like they got up 11-0, and then they were down 14-11 like that. Like, that was very quick. And they came right back, steadied the ship, hit some deep balls, did some good stuff. It was awesome. They really rallied. I was impressed.
It's also insane that there's a deep route every play for an offside. Like, I know there's sometimes where like the receiver's looking in, sees the flag, and there's kind of like a hey, go deep. So that explains some of it. But also some of the time, I don't know if I trust a college wide receiver to always be like locked in enough to be like offside. He gave me the so like there's also a point where they're just saying Dollison go run deep nearly every play. It feels
Dollison
like
basically just runs sprints back and forth. Like, if it doesn't come to him, he runs back to line of scrimmage and then does it again. But hey, it's working, which also I think is going to set up some stuff where like he's going to be able to run like some hard stop curls here soon and be like completely uncovered, because if he hits guys with like double moves and stuff, it's going to get sick.
But then that adds just another wrinkle where then you throw that in where he's hitting hard stop curls. A defensive back has no chance at covering him.
No, like if he can just bring in like basic curl routes, they're going to be able to hit for like 10 yards every play, because he's just going to like, you're going to be so scared. You have to play off him.
It's going to be so much fun. All right, JMU defense. I say they get the job done because they did allow 50 points. They did allow over 600 yards of total offense. But for the most part, they got the job done. They made the stops when needed. They got the turnovers when needed. This was a game where defense was optional. Over 1,200 yards of total offense between the both teams. 616 total yards for UNC. 611 for JMU. A total of 182 plays were run. 79 for UNC, 73 for JMU. JMU averaged 8.4 yards.
We got to fact check that math.
What did I say?
How many totals did you say?
152, right?
Oh, I thought you said 189 or something. Maybe that was the stat before.
I may have, but I did them. I don't know what.
Whoa. No, you're right. That's
152 is still a wild.
I think
number.
it's 142, right?
No.
150. Okay. Sorry.
Come on.
I got really thrown off. I thought you were saying 200 plays in this game.
I'm excited to listen back to this podcast as I'm editing it.
You probably said it right, and I just like was behind on one stat.
Okay, so then 8.4 yards per play for JMU, 7.8 for UNC. These are just insane numbers. All of that with JMU getting flagged 12 times for 105 yards.
That.
What a weird game. But the defense does its job. They get 5 total turnovers. What? 3 picks and 2 fumbles?
I think 3 fumbles, 2 picks. Spence had the picks. I don't know if anybody else snagged a pick.
Yep, 2 picks. My apologies. 3 fumbles.
Spence is a monster. Took one back for a touchdown and blocked a punt. Like, my God. It was crazy.
What a geez Louise. 2 picks.
What an individual performance.
Both of the picks are him like also believing in himself so much and like being coached where see ball, get ball. He just jumped the route, which I do think kind of hurt them in them allowing the huge chunk plays where they are coached see ball, get ball. And sometimes see ball, don't get ball ends up you getting burned. But when you create 5 turnovers, it truly doesn't matter if you allow 616 yards, because if you're winning the turnover battle by 4, odds are you're going to win the game.
Yeah, Chesney put this in a crazy way in like his press conference, that not really a crazy way, but it's crazy when you think about what happened. 5 turnovers, a blocked punt, and an onside kick. They stole 7 possessions.
Wow. Yeah, when you put it like that.
That's insane. And they only won by 20. But like, what a crazy, and I guess North Carolina had some stolen possessions of their own with a block punt touchdown. They got a turnover of their own, but still just really incredible dynamic plays from the defense, from the special teams. But yeah, maybe you want to give up fewer yards. We'll see how that goes against the rest of the year. But you're not really going to face many offenses like North Carolina in the Sun Belt schedule from what we've seen.
Yeah, most of the yards came through the air. They had 470 passing yards. They went 28 of 48, averaged 17 yards per completion, 9.9 yards per attempt, threw for 3 touchdowns as well. Jacoby Criswell, I think, is a very good quarterback as well for the Tar Heels. I think he might be better than Max Johnson. I think he is better than Connor Harrell. Connor Harrell, shout out to him, came in for one play after Criswell's helmet came off and Harrell fumbled the snap.
I forgot about that.
Truly
that was
electric
brutal.
stuff. Electric stuff.
Brutal.
But I mean, watching the game on my rewatch, I was never like, the defense is an issue. Like they were, for the most part, and also I'm thinking of it in the lens of like against a Sun Belt team, they were in the right spot.
Yes.
Where they would have made the play against a Sun Belt team 9 times out of 10. Now against UNC, that may have been 7 times out of 10, but like when they ran the blitz, it was a step away from getting home. When they ran the blitz, thank you, they were a step away from getting home. When they, even when they were rushing 4, Eric O'Neal, his motor is that of a GM truck. Never stops moving.
Stop.
I didn't know how that analogy was going to go. Ford, his energy is like a Ford motor. It's built Ford tough. He's a dog. He was getting there. His roughing the passer call on the first play, like the first drive, was not roughing the passer like at all.
They were calling roughing the passer anytime a quarterback got touched.
It was insane. But the linebackers made some good plays. Trent Hendrick with the peanut punch on the first drive of the game inside the 8. How different is this game if UNC drove down the field and scored on that? That was fantastic. DJ Barksdale is a dog. The closer you get to the line of scrimmage, the more dog he is. 5'9", 177, and yet he plays like a 6'2" linebacker near the line of scrimmage as a redshirt freshman. The Montpelier Collective just announced that he's one of the NIL athletes.
Oh.
Hopefully we can keep him for a while because he can develop into probably a very special player.
He's very good. I like his game a lot. So they got some dogs. It wasn't perfect. I do think it was a little bit game dependent too, where like the second quarter they held them to like 60 total yards. And then after that, they had such a big lead. They're up 32 at halftime, I think. So crazy. But they had 53 points on the scoreboard at halftime. I think in the second half, a lot of what they were trying to do is to keep stuff in front of them. And they were okay giving up some yards because they knew that North Carolina needed to have like one of the best halves in program history to come back and win. So I think if it would have been different if it was like tied at half, I think.
100%. And they never really got close again. Like there was a point where I think JMU was up 19 and it was like, okay, it's 3 possessions. If they go down and score here, then get a stop. And like all of a sudden it's a game, but they never did. And they never really were threatening to. JMU, when they needed to make the plays, made the plays. And like you said, in the second half, it wasn't prevent defense, but it was a defense where, okay, we're going to give you that 5-yard crossing route and we're going to tackle you after you gain 7 in bounds. So the clock continues to run. We don't want to give you the chunk 58-yard touchdown. So we're going to keep it in front of us, tackle you in bounds. The clock's going to run because as much as you're battling us, as much as you're trying to come back on us, you're battling the clock more. You only have 30 minutes to score 40 points and then also hold us to no points. And they didn't even do what they needed to do, because if JMU failed to score any second half points, they would have won this game 53-50.
Yeah, quite the second half. I also thought JMU did a nice job late in the game. Like they were getting cooked a little bit in the secondary. And then they're like, what if we just didn't give him any time to throw and blitzed him? And then North Carolina started throwing a bunch of incompletions and had no chance. So like they got some pressures that really came home late in the game with some creative blitzes. I think Lyle Hempel's doing a nice job with the defense, and I'm really excited to see what they can do against teams that don't have Omarion Hampton and like a power 4 level quarterback, because
and an NFL tight end.
Yes, because Ball State, ULM, others fall into that category of not having those things.
I would argue most of the Sun Belt this year falls into that category. App State doesn't look as good as I thought they were going to look. We avoid South Alabama this season.
We'll see if they're truly a wagon, because they do have 2 non.
Well, it doesn't matter. We don't play them.
Yeah, but I'm not. Some people are like, "Oh, I'm scared of seeing them in the championship game." It's like, why?
I'm more scared of Texas State still.
Texas State seems good. If like that's my guess for the Sun Belt Championship would be JMU Texas State at this point. Although Louisiana, I think, still has some game.
Louisiana is still ranked pretty highly in the S&P 500, the S&P Plus by Bill Conley. I think JMU is the highest Sun Belt team. Louisiana is about 10 spots behind them for the second ranked Sun Belt team. JMU notably in the SP Plus by Bill Conley over at ESPN, right in front of Liberty, and they're the 4th ranked non-P4 team. And you got to say it like that because Washington State is ranked in front of them.
Yeah, but they can't get the auto bid for the playoff, so they're irrelevant.
Well, did you see that technically the auto bid isn't to the P4 champs?
It's like 5 highest ranked, but it's going to be. Yeah,
I mean, likely. But hey, who knows? JMU runs the table. Could they be the 4th highest ranked team?
The schedule's bad.
Okay, that's
like
good.
The North Carolina win's nice, but the schedule is going to be soft.
I guess that's true because the 4 Power 4 conference champions are going to be ranked like 1 through 15, maybe.
Yeah.
And JMU is going to be ranked like at best 17th.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to crack that top 12. Oh, if they go undefeated, you never know. They're like, chances are they would be at 12. UNLV, we'll talk about Sluka in a minute. I've got that in news or snooze. But UNLV, if they had kept winning with their schedule, maybe could have gotten like the 10 seed or something. But at the same time, it's hard when you're starting. Quarterback leaves 3 weeks into the season.
It'll be really fun if like UNC runs the table for the rest of the way, though.
That would look good. Yeah, if UNC, I still think they're like a 7-9 win team, man. Their schedule's trash.
It's horrible. I was looking at it on To the House, which you can find on the JMU Sports News Network in this podcast feed every Monday night. New podcast with JMU Hall of Famer Delvin Joyce. We were talking about that, and I was like, they got like 5 more wins on this schedule at least.
Yeah, they don't. Who do they miss? They miss Louisville, Miami, Clemson,
and they get Florida State.
Yeah, they get it. Like that was their one. Like coming into the year, it was like, ooh, that could be tough. Now it's like, wow, Boston College could be their toughest game left. So they should win. Yeah, it would be a shock if they don't win 7-9. So maybe Mac Brown can take a deep breath. We'll also get to that in news or snooze.
Perfect timing. We're going to step aside and be back on the other side of this break with News or Snooze presented by Cinnamon Bear in Harrisonburg, right across the street from the Atlantic Union Bank.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Center. Welcome back into the JMU Sports News Podcast, presented by Bet Online. It's time now for everyone's favorite segment. Can I get a drum roll, please? Fantastic. News or Snooze, presented by Cinnamon Bear Bakery and Deli. If you're in Harrisonburg, next time you're in Harrisonburg, check out the Atlantic Union. Check out Cinnamon Bear across the street from the Atlantic Union Bank Center. It's family weekend this weekend. Ball State's coming into town. If you're a student listening to this, take your parents to Cinnamon Bear. It's absolutely fantastic. It's not as busy as Jay's, but it's better. It's better. So check out Cinnamon Bear across the street from the Atlantic Union Bank Center.
All right, this is a good week. We're going to start with the Sluka news because I think it's fascinating. So which I'm calling it news already. So I don't know if you can snooze it, but you could. Okay. So this is
News.
G5. This is G5
News.
relevant.
News.
This is Bob Chesney, Holy Cross relevant. Matt Sluka, who was a darling for JMU fans in the offseason portal window. The
Us
Holy Cross
included.
transfer goes to UNLV. He leads them in some capacity to wins over Houston and Kansas. They're 3-0 right now. They are the second highest ranked group of 5 team in the AP poll. They're unranked, but I think they're second in votes behind Boise State, who they'll play later this year. They still have a game with Syracuse. Sluka post last night at like 1 a.m. Eastern or like 10 a.m. his time in Vegas.
10 a.m.?
Sorry, 10 p.m. Yeah, 10 a.m. Time zones are crazy. People don't realize that. 10 p.m. his time in Vegas. And he says that he is redshirting the rest of the season because UNLV essentially didn't fulfill certain obligations that I guess he felt were agreed upon when he committed. Essentially, right, without saying it specifically, something didn't go quite correct with an NIL deal. It's my understanding, pretty much everyone's understanding. News or snooze?
Newsworthy. And I think the even more newsworthy part of this is now UNLV sources, leaks, whatever it may be, or like dragging his name through the mud. They are just like, he's quitting on the team, which he kind of is, but we'll get into that in a second. Like, he's quitting on the team. He's this horrible person, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, goodness gracious. I see why he wanted to leave if this is the type of culture UNLV has.
Just a mess. Like, regardless of what happened, whether he wasn't paid or whether he was, I find it hard to believe though that he was searching out like a big NIL bag. He's in the 2 Power 4 wins. He threw for like a combined 150 yards. It was 13 of 31. Like, he's an incredible runner, fun player to watch, but he's still developing quite a bit as a passer. What Power 5 team in week 4 is contacting him being like, hey,
Next
we're going to get you
season.
a huge bag, man. We love this like 40% completion percentage you have against P4 team. Like, I think he's a fun quarterback, but I don't think he was demanded some increase in NIL value. So I find that kind of hard to believe. Maybe there was like an incentive-based deal that he wasn't getting paid.
So-
It's a mess though.
Parker Fleming, who does Stats of War, who is College Football Graphs, the EPA guy that we really like to use him in Game on Paper. They have fantastic insights. But he tweeted, it's possible that, and it's like a 4-thing tweet. It's possible that Sluka accepted an incentive-based plan, assuming a certain style of play. It's possible that a team style of play looked very different than it has in the past. It's possible that a QB missed out on money. He considered that it was more so like a guarantee to earn. And then the school technically fulfilled all of their obligations, but Sluka feels like they didn't. And I think that's the most likely one. He doesn't have sources. He's just kind of, he's a nerd. He look into the stats. So when he says, a team style of plays look different than it has in the past, he knows what their style of play was last year. He knows what their style of play is this year, and it's not adding up. I don't think Sluka's in the wrong here. I think Sluka is very much in the right. And yes, the NCAA is a Wild West. The NIL is in a Wild West era. There needs to be a ton more regulations in it. But until there are more regulations, I'm all for players trying to take their autonomy back, their power back, because players have been used, abused, and kicked aside for so many years. If Sluka came into UNLV being told this is what can be expected, maybe not even guaranteed, but like what can be expected, and you don't fulfill on that, and he had other offers that were similar, and he knows that if he hits the open market again, maybe he's not going to make as much money, whatever it may be, but he can go and test the open market again and take your power back, players. Like, I don't think Sluka's in the wrong at all. Like, the team didn't fulfill their team duties with him, as like stupid as that may sound. Allegedly. So then why does he have to risk his life? Why does he have to risk injury going out for a team that clearly doesn't respect him?
Yeah,
an NFL player, sorry to interrupt you. It just,
go ahead.
like an NFL player is going to get paid. If he doesn't get paid,
Mhm.
he's going to sit. Look at what Jamar
Yeah.
Chase did this offseason, what CeeDee Lamb did this offseason, what we see every single year with hold-ins and what we used to see with holdouts. Players want to get paid. They're not going to risk getting injured to play for a team that truly doesn't care about them. As much as we love these schools, these programs, your NFL teams, it's awesome. We have a deep caring for it. The teams don't really care about the players. The players are just a cog in the machine. And so the players need to try and extract as much value as they can. And for Sluka, he's not an NFL guy.
That's what I
This
was
is
gonna
the
say,
only
yeah.
opportunity for him to make, potentially life-changing money. I think the reports were that he was making 6 figures with UNLV in their NIL deal. Who knows if that was all incentive-based, and the way Barry Odom's calling the games, they're making Sluka run for a lot, and a lot of the incentives were pass-based. And Sluka's like, what the hell, man? I'm all for Sluka trying to extract as much value as he can out of his very short college football career, because, in 12 months, in 24 months now with his red shirt, he's probably selling insurance at some, top, Fortune 500 company.
It's just a fascinating one because, I think if what he's alleging is true, that they didn't make good on the obligations, I think it's fine because for him it's a business. He's playing the current system, which I think it would benefit from having collective bargaining and more regulations where some of this you have to fulfill your obligation if you're the employer or whatever. I don't know exactly what their agreement was, how much was in writing, how much was a spoken, I'm going to give you incentives kind of thing. But it's a mess for UNLV. It's a mess for everyone involved. And yes, Sluka, I talked about the completion percentage. He's not like an NFL scout's dream, right? He's a very unique college quarterback.
He's
And-
Taysom Hill.
Yeah, right. So if his NFL position would have to be a weird hybrid tight end, and that most people aren't drafting that or seeking that out. So it's one that's going to be really hard for him. I'm interested to see what happens though next year in the portal. Does he try to play a Taysom Hill role at JMU? Who knows what he does? Who knows where he goes? But it's going to be one that I think is interesting, and also one that I think actually JMU fans are keeping kind of tabs on as long as Chesney's in the program.
But as long as Barnett is here, I don't want to see Sluka anywhere near Harrisonburg, Virginia.
I would take him as QB2 if he wants to be QB2, hang out with his Holy Cross guys.
Well, they'll all be gone next year.
We'll see. No, I meant the coaching staff.
Oh.
But yes, those guys will be gone. Okay. We've got some going back to UNC, going back to JMU. Let's go with we'll go with Chesney's quote here. So he's talking to Dave Riggert immediately after the UNC win, and he says, "It's been phenomenal. This is of Alonzo Barnett's growth, but you're not allowed to jump on this bandwagon anymore." Then Dave Riggert kind of chuckled. Bob Chesney goes, "I'm serious. I'm dead serious. All those doubters out there, you're not allowed. Stay where you were. Be on that side of it. We're with our guy. We believe in him. We believe in everybody on this team. For you that doubted, do not speak a word about it at all. We're not listening anyway. We care about what we think."
Well, you're clearly listening. I'm sorry.
That part was funny when it's everybody who said something, we don't even hear you. Well, that doesn't make sense.
I do love the swagger, though. When I first heard this quote, I was like, come on, brother. And then as I've thought about it more, I'm like, hell yeah, man.
Yeah,
Give
me
me
too.
that swagger. That along with the awful, 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 awful clip.
Clear holding goal. That was very fun.
I can't get out. The fact that I was watching that and I was like, okay, he's gonna say awful 3 times, and he said it again, and then he said it again, and each time he got more animated with it. Then he said it again, and I was like, holy crap, this dude's a maniac.
I love Breon Penny, but that man had a fistful of jersey on that play. UNC defender let his hand go. I think it was holding.
Did you hear what the announcer said on the play?
No.
Penny's gotta let go of that sooner so he doesn't get caught.
That's true. If he had let go a second or two sooner, he probably actually gets away with it.
But I love it. we got this happy-go-lucky. This team's a brotherhood. We love everyone.
We went to the pool together.
We went to the pool together.
Game.
We played the name game. We're all so much big friends. We love each other. This is so fun. I love college football. And then like, I imagine this is how he's always been, like behind the scenes, but getting this view of who he is as a maniac, I love it. Give me more of it. I loved Kurt Signetti because he was just a dick. I'm not saying Bob Chesney's a dick, but I want to see the maniac side of it where he's just like, can't get on the bandwagon. It's closed. Chugga, chugga, choo, choo. We're going. The hype train's out of the station, baby. If you got left behind, fuck you. You're staying. Sorry for the language. You're staying behind. There's nothing like, I love this. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's newsworthy.
I love it too. I also love that. I love coaches like right after a win or right after a loss, like those immediate quotes that are just fired up where it's like the question is basically like, how about Alonzo? Like, he had a great game today. He's like, how about his development? Yeah, it's been great. And if you doubted him, screw you. It's like, whoa. And then Rigger laughing. He's like, no, I'm serious. And then he's talking about stuff almost like it was like biblical, where he's like, for you that doubted, do not speak a word about it. The phrasing there is incredible. Not like, oh, don't talk, like, do not speak a word of what you saw. Like, he was just watching like Jesus walk across water and you had just doubted him or something with a 7-touchdown performance. That was an incredible quote. What electric factory from our guy Bob Chesney.
How does it feel for you where you've been writing columns defending Alonzo and then the head coach is like, Bennett Conlon, he's been the believer. He's one of our 12 disciples.
I love that when he's like, well, also I was a little unclear about like when the bandwagon closed. So it's like, you're not allowed to jump on the bandwagon anymore. Is that post UNC? Like if you got on mid game, are you good? I was
agreeing with this. I was thinking this too. Like, so like, because in my mind, I was thinking of Ryan Rutherford.
He was my number one thought too.
With his Twitter was Dylan Morris Truther. I was like, I wonder if he made the cut. I wonder if he made the cut because did it close pregame? Did it close after he started 1 for 6? Did it start, at the end of the 0-0? That'd be a funny press conference question. So, Coach, when did the bandwagon close for Alonzo? We're just trying to figure out what the timeline here was. Can you let us know when the hype train closed, when it left the station?
Everything about that was incredible. And then at the end to just be like, we actually don't hear you was sick. Like to actively talk to the doubters and then be like, but we don't even know who doubts us was just objectively cool. All right. Quote number 3. And this is sort of a two-parter here because this story was just hilarious. Mac Brown, after the loss to JMU, he goes into the locker room and apparently asks his players if he should retire, which we'll get into in a second. But he also then tells the media, embarrassing day, shocking day. You shouldn't be at North Carolina and lose to a group of 5 team, period. This is his second loss to a group of 5 team since taking over the program again a few years back. And he also has 2 1-possession wins over App State and a 1-possession win over Georgia State. So essentially, and the loss was to App State. So if you put him in the Sun Belt the last few years, he's like 4-2 or something. Like, might not win the East kind of stuff. But he says they should never lose to a G5.
It's like, it's funny because him saying that is newsworthy, but then at the same time, like he's kind of an idiot, so it's snoozeworthy. Like Mac Brown, it's not your Texas squad anymore. It's not like it's not the first time you coach UNC. There's not that much of a difference between like the top end group of 5 schools and your UNC squad that has been middling for so many years. Like, cool, you have Hampton, but then you have a bad offensive line. Cool, you have Nesbitt, but you have no other receiving options. You haven't been able to field a competent defense since you retook over North Carolina a few years back. Like, brother, there's not much of a gap between the JMUs of the world and the UNCs of the world. Now, there's a big gap between the Georgias and the JMUs, but there's arguably just as big of a gap between Georgia and UNC.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree that they can't ever lose to a G5. I kind of get him saying it after the fact because like you probably shouldn't get 70 pieces if you're trying to be like a competent ACC team by anybody. But like especially a team that scored 13 against Gardner-Webb is a tough look for him. So I get that aspect of it, but that was hilarious. And then this man was so shook from this defeat, he truly asked his team post-game if he should retire, which is one of the craziest things I've ever heard. And then I guess he was saying that he said in his media then this week that the majority of them said no, or like the overwhelming amount. It was like, were some of them saying yes? He was like, the overwhelming amount of people said that no, it's okay. So there are like 5 players in this team who are like, coach, get that F out of here.
Hampton sitting there.
That's crazy.
Just get out of here, man. That's also newsworthy. What a weird guy. What an insane human. JMU broke him. JMU has also broken like UNC fans too.
That I've never seen a crowd like that after halftime. It was empty. They were playing in front of like essentially an empty stadium for the second half. What Delvin said, it was like a spring game onto the house. He was right. It felt like it was like some sort of weird spring scrimmage.
You heard the JMU chants loud and clear the entire second half.
It was
probably why the ACC network cut. They're like, we can't hear JMU fans cheering at an ACC school.
And then they cut to a Virginia Tech team that was like imploding on itself against Rutgers. I don't know if people had a chance to see that Kyron Drone's safety, but if you haven't had a chance to watch that video, I'd encourage you to check it out.
I think you tweeted this. They then cut to the Virginia Tech intros.
Like, yeah, it was just them talking about Virginia Tech.
Normally, like, best practices is someone who worked for CBS Sports Network and has had to deal with these types of jumps when a game's going long. Typically, the kick gets pushed back a few minutes, and then if the first game still, or I guess in basketball, this is how we did it. The tip got pushed back a few minutes, and then the game that was ongoing would either normally the second game would just start on the app. And then if it was by some wild thing that you had to jump to the other game, you would jump right at tip. So there'd be no pregame. Yeah. The fact that they went to intros when like you still had another 10 minutes before the kick came. And if you had kept it on JMU UNC for the 10 minutes, the game probably would have finished.
That was something, man. That was very, very funny, though. Just to ACC Network being like, we got to get out of this. They're about to put up a 70 burger.
They didn't even warn it. Right? Like they weren't.
No warning.
Coming up soon, we're going to be going to the Virginia Tech game. So catch the end of this game on ACC Network. They were like, and a run down to the 15, and the rest of this game can be caught on ACC Network Extra. We're going to Virginia Tech, and it's like, what is happening? I've never seen that.
That was crazy. This is one of the funniest games that I can ever. It's up there with like Utah State in terms of some of the just absolute nonsense that went down.
What a good time. All right. Anything else you got to add on football?
No, they play Ball State. I feel like the focus of the Ball State game.
Forgot we didn't even preview Ball State.
It doesn't matter. I feel like the focus is like don't overlook them, and then try to wrangle their tight end because their quarterback's pretty accurate. He's a decent passer. They got a 6'7" tight end who's really good. Taylor Thompson is like of all the JMU players, like might say too much. Like he might be like the least media trained in the best possible way.
Taylor Thompson?
Where they asked him in the like weekly press conference, they're like, I think they said something about like they gave up a lot of passing yards last week. Is that something like you think you can take advantage of? And he was like, the funny thing is the week before they gave up like 400 rushing yards. So we feel like we can attack everything. I was like, oh man, like this could be an ugly one. I think they're like 3 touchdown favorites essentially. So a loss here would be stunning. Can't overlook them, but there's a lot they can take advantage of. Ball State is not a great MAC team.
Yeah, Taylor Thompson was also funny at JMU Football Media Day where it's like, how'd you pick JMU? And he goes, well, no other schools called me. So I was just kind of like, I had to go to JMU. And it's like, all right, fair. Normally, like, you know, a player like juices that up a little bit. But why'd you leave Charlotte? Well, Biff Poggi came in and didn't call me. So I just kind of got the hint. It's like, hell yeah.
Just obsessed with that quote of like, you know, you see stuff in the passing game. Funny thing is they suck against the run too.
They've lost, just so everyone's aware, they're 1-2. They squeaked out a win against FCS foe Missouri State, 42-34. Then the next week they backed it up with a 62-0 beatdown at the hands of the Miami Hurricanes. And then they lost by 3 at Central Michigan. This will be their 3rd straight away game before returning home against Western Michigan.
They give up a lot of points.
They give up. Their defense is not very good. Their offense is fine. Like putting up 30, 34 is fine. 42 is good. The goose egg's going to hurt kind of like the stats that you look at, but that's against a Miami team that's a college football playoff type of team. So you kind of got to throw that out. Against similar opponents, they put up over 30 points. They have a quarterback who's only thrown, I think, 2 interceptions. He takes care of the ball really well. Their defense can get got. But, I mean, if you can just slow down their tight end, which JMU has had a history of going up against good tight ends and being able to shut them down. Granted, that was a completely different coaching staff, but, like, I trust Lyle Hemphill will know how to, slow down a 6'7", 250 tight end.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that matchup. Should be an interesting game. And then Ball State also has one of their more interesting players. Their starting quarterback last year, I think his last name's Kelly.
Yeah, Kalel.
Still here. They moved him. I think it started freezing. They moved him to corner, but they've also used him at receiver and given him like direct snaps. So he's just an athlete, and they're like, we need to play him as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, he started like the last 4 games of the season or something like that. The team went 2-2, but like their offense found a new rhythm. And then they moved him. He didn't even compete for the quarterback position this year. They're like, no, you're going to defensive back. And this Caden Simonza, redshirt freshman, had a few snaps last year. And then he came in. I think he was the technically QB2 coming into this season, but he won the starting position over Chase Harrison and Aiden Leffler.
You got your Phil Steele out?
I do. I was reading Chase Harrison's a transfer from Marshall, and I've never even heard that name before. But yeah, they got a running back.
Winnable game.
They got a running back named Maximus.
Their offense is kind of sneaky fun. I think it's a good test for the defense. And then this is a really good barometer of like how explosive and good JMU's offense really is, because they've given up at least 30 points to Missouri State, Central Michigan, and then Miami scored 62. So like if you're, putting up a Gardner Webb offensive showing, there's some concerns again. But if you go out, score 30 plus, whatever, you could look pretty good in this one offensively, I think, as Taylor Thompson said.
The run defense will be tested. Braden Sloan's a pretty good running back for them as well. Hasn't really found his rhythm to start the season, but was 4th team all Phil Steele in the MAC. It's funny that he does 4 teams. No one else.
Yeah, it's like he's like an 8th team all MAC. He's the 8th best running back in the MAC.
All right, and to wrap things up, just want to give a shout out to men's soccer coming off of a massive 5-0 victory against non-conference foe Radford. The don't look now. You know the Happy Gilmore meme? Happy learned how to putt. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they learned how to score.
JMU men's soccer learned how to score after scoring 3 total goals in their first 4 games of the season. They've scored multiple goals their last 4, a 2-0 win against Liberty, a 2-1 win at Mount St. Mary's, a 2-0 win to begin Sunbelt play against UCF, and a 5-0 drubbing of Radford at home. They're back in action on Saturday against Georgia Southern at 7 p.m. They're back at it in Sunbelt play at Georgia Southern. Is that what I said? 7 p.m. first kick in Statesboro. JMU is ranked 10th in the country. They've done very well this season against ranked opponents. 0-0 draw across the country in LA against number 21 at the time, UCLA, and a 1-0 win at home against number 14, Georgetown, back at the start of September on the 9th. So now they're 10th in the nation. They get ranked 10th. They win 5-0. This team is very good.
Super good. Keep an eye on women's soccer too. Maybe not as nationally relevant, but should be pretty solid in the Sun Belt. Their only losses this year to Virginia Tech, UVA, and West Virginia, and they beat Southern Miss 7-2 to open conference play.
That's pretty good. And women's golf, they'll wrap up play at the Cavalier Regional.
Heck yeah. Field hockey also, MACtion has started. They're 1-0. They beat the defending MAC champion Miami, Ohio at the end of last week. So I'm excited to see if they can win a conference. They got something to actually play for instead of sort of being in independent no man's land.
Heck yeah. All right. For Bennett Collin, I'm Jack Fitzpatrick. Thank you so much for tuning in to the JMU Sports News Podcast presented by Bet Online. You can find all of our written content at www.jmusportsnews.com, and you can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, JMU Sports News. If you're not already, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast. The JMU Sports News Network is in all of your podcast feeds, whether you listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anything like that. If you subscribe to the JMU Sports News Network, you'll never miss an episode of this podcast or To the House with JMU Hall of Famer Delvin Joyce that drops every single Monday night. So keep it locked right here, and we'll talk to you guys next week, hopefully after a Ball State win. Until then, see ya.
No importa lo que más te guste hacer, lo encontrarás en una escapadita a Knoxville, o como lo llaman algunos, Knox volar por la cima de los árboles y luego ver tu banda favorita, Ville. Otros le dicen Knox diversión para toda la familia, incluidos tus adolescentes muy picky y tu perrito Ville. Llames como lo llames o cualquier aventura que estés buscando, lo encontrarás en Knoxville, una ciudad llena de arte, aventura y naturaleza. Planifica tu viaje en visitknoxville.com.
Head back to school with trending looks from Adidas. Samba, Gazelle, and Superstar elevate your style all year long. For cozy classroom vibes, try hoodies, t-shirts, or sweats. All the gear you need to make an impression from the first day to the last are at your local Adidas store and on adidas.com. On trend in the classroom.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.